Why do you feel that Jay and I are idiots for utilizing video for our podcast?
Watching people talk, is that really compelling video?
Discoverability in audio is so challenging.
Welcome to Creator Debates, where we have stupid arguments to help creators make smart decisions. My name is Justin Moore, founder of Creator Wizard. I'm your host and referee. Today, we're talking about podcasts. If you're thinking, podcasts? Who the heck still listens to those? This is the age of TikTok. Anything longer than 30 seconds is blasphemy. People have the attention span of squirrels now. Come on. Well, would it surprise you that over 1/3 of Americans, that's 104 million people, listen to podcasts regularly? You're seeing massive companies like Spotify spending hundreds of millions of dollars to acquire upstarts like Anchor, a free podcasting platform, and Gimlet, a producer of podcasts. But the thing that kind of sucks about podcasts is it's hard to find them. Unless one of your friends tells you, you gotta check out this dope new podcast I found all about underwater basket weaving. But enter YouTube, and even TikTok and Instagram Reels for that matter. You are now seeing an explosion of podcasters starting to leverage video. YouTube even launched a dedicated podcast homepage recently. So I don't know about you, but I'm feeling pretty confused. Now, this is gonna be kind of meta because when I was figuring out how to launch this podcast that you're listening and or watching right now, I thought to myself, do I really want to complicate things by adding video? That way I can just record all the episodes in my PJs. So I realized I needed to call upon some experts to settle this debate once and for all. So I rang up Jay Clouse, founder of Creator Science, host of the award-winning 1 million downloads in 18 months Creative Elements podcast, which, by the way, was recently completely reimagined as a video podcast. But in the other corner, we have Joe Casabona, podcast coach and producer who helps podcasters become business owners at Podcast Liftoff. He creates online courses for LinkedIn Learning and hosts a podcast called How I Built It. And Joe feels pretty strongly that video killed the podcast star. So by the end of this episode, you'll know whether or not launching a video podcast is the right move for you as a creator, how to speak with brands and sponsors to make more money with your video or audio podcast, and honestly, the only thing I really care about, who is a better creator debater, Jay or Joe? So Jay, you have the floor first. Why did you decide to start incorporating video into your podcast? And do you think that's mandatory if you were starting over today? You have 2 minutes.
Well, after 2 years of an audio-only show, I looked at my analytics and said, this show's way better than it would look purely from analytics. And it's not even that my analytics were terrible, but the amount of effort that I was putting into the show and the qualitative feedback I get from listeners, I was just constantly asking myself, how can I get this thing in front of more people? Because discoverability in audio is so challenging, nearly non-existent. Will things get better? Maybe. But it really felt like if I was going to lean into discoverability, one of the best ways I could do that for the show was being on YouTube in particular. That's the draw to video for me, is that I can put the show on YouTube. So that was the plan, and we gave it a shot because the YouTube algorithm is fairly equal opportunity for good content. It seems to try to put your new video in front of at least a small sampling of random viewers early on, and if that performs well, it'll put it in front of more people and more people and more people. And if you create a good video, theoretically, things can go pretty well pretty quickly for your channel. So that's why I took to YouTube with the show. Is it necessary for everybody, or is it the right move for everybody? I will say that I feel sometimes like doing a 60-minute interview show on YouTube is doing YouTube on hard mode. Is every podcast a 60-minute interview show? No. So it might even be more viable for certain shows, maybe solo shows, shorter shows. All that to say, though, there seems to be a lot of opportunity for long-form video on YouTube. 60-minute interviews are long form. I think we're moving more and more in that direction based on YouTube's recent stance on how they're going to lean into podcasting. And I think the future's bright. But it does require a lot of editing skills. So if you are not a video editor, that will be tough, might require some help, which opens up its own challenges. So is it right for everybody? I guess.
All right. 2 minutes. All right. Very, very compelling. I have a question real quickly before we go to Joe. Do you personally watch video podcasts on YouTube?
Sometimes, yeah.
And what contrasts that? Which ones do you watch on video versus ones on your podcast player?
Well, I look for videos that have some additive element to the show. If it's just a back and forth with the guest where there's nothing really on screen, less compelling. But it also kind of depends on the mood. Sometimes I want to have the cozy camaraderie feel by having it on a second monitor and feeling like I have a couple of friends there. That can be kind of nice.
Love it. Love it. All right. Joe, floor is yours. Thoughts? Rebuttal?
Look, podcasting can be really tough. It can kind of be a nightmare, especially for beginners. And then you're going to add video to it. So instead of just looking good, which you can do, or I'm sorry, instead of just sounding good, which you can do with like a $50 or $70 microphone, now you have to worry about looking good too, which means you need a decent camera and you need good lighting. And now that $70 turns into $500. And that's just you. If you have guests, forget about it. You want them to look good and you want them to sound good. And I can tell you, unless you're smart like Justin and only interview creators, then you're going to have a harder time getting them to look good. And for what? To tick a box? Watching people talk? Is that really compelling video? My audience doesn't think so on YouTube. I don't think so. And when you tell somebody to start a podcast and then say, well, you also need video, it's kind of like asking someone, hey, do you want to play baseball with my friend? We need a pitcher. And then telling them that your friend is Aaron Judge. Or it's like saying, hey, I need help moving. Can you help me move? By the way, I'm moving out of the White House. Or saying, or offering to drive somebody to the airport and then finding out that it's not the 40-minute away airport, it's JFK in New York City during rush hour, which actually happened to me. My point is, adding video to an audio-only medium moves the chains a lot. And especially for a first-time podcaster, it makes the barrier for entry considerably harder without much benefit. Now, Jay mentioned, right, discoverability in audio is not good. And that's right. That's a good point. But YouTube has been leaning into audio only more. In March of 2022, a PowerPoint leaked talking about how they were going to get into podcasting. They rolled out a feature for YouTube Premium where you can listen to videos outside of the app. They have YouTube Music. And more recently, towards the end of 2022, they released a document talking about how they're going to leverage audio-only ad insertion, which tells me that YouTube, a video platform, is also seeing the benefits of having an audio-only content area.
Got it.
I talk fast, so I see the rest of my time.
It's good. It's good. So, I mean, really, the thing I want to know most, though, is why do you feel that Jay and I are idiots for utilizing video for our podcasts?
I think that, I mean, so you're putting words in my mouth. I would never call either one of you an idiot. But I think that video and audio serve two different purposes. And I think as you both kind of insinuated, just like watching people talk back and forth is not compelling, right? Like, I don't know about you, but when I sat on a panel at a conference recently. When I go to panels, it's like kind of a snooze fest, right? You need something to break up the monotony. And maybe you can do that with editing. But I think that if it's a conversation, it's more convenient for the listener, right? Because they can do other stuff while they're listening. And it's easier to produce as well, which I think we'll probably get into later.
So let's actually get into round one, which is all about creativity. So Jay, I want to go to you. Do you feel that having a video podcast allows you to paint with a broader creative brush, and why? 2 minutes.
Oh, totally. There are so many times within every episode that we have on the show where a guest will bring up something as kind of an aside, and we're able to add depth to that interview by showing B-roll without audio on screen at that time. So right now we're editing an episode with Hayden Hillier-Smith. He was Logan Paul's former editor, has a podcast called The Editing Podcast. And there are times when he calls out to videos he did with Logan, or there are times when he said one of his inspirations are Colin and Samir. We're able to give a lot of depth and context on screen without needing to pull audio from those videos to both make a more compelling video product, but also help people understand things more. There's even a point in that interview where I refer to his co-host as Josh incorrectly, and on screen we can put asterisk Jordan. So it even allows me to cover up for some miscues in that way. It is a broader canvas, though. Like, it is a broader canvas of, do we need to cover more ground because we are showcasing more material? That can be paralyzing. That can be scary. It can be intimidating. It can also be really, really great. So you can look at it as a gift. You can look at it as a challenge. You can look at the difficulty as a non-starter, or you can look at it as an opportunity. And we've chosen to look at it as an opportunity and a gift to be able to do more within the same confines.
Is this, so Joe, I want to take this to you. Do you think that this is, from the creative standpoint, that this is too intimidating to someone who's just starting out? They're going to have to master both video and audio versus, hey, let's just get out the gates. Let's, have this be an audio show and then you can tackle video later. Obviously, I'm an idiot because I'm trying to tackle both at the same time, but I'm curious your thoughts on this. 2 minutes.
Yeah, I think it's tough and it could be intimidating, right? Because it's more than just having to talk, which I suspect a lot more people are comfortable with, right? But you got to get camera ready, right? I'm like sweating that I didn't shave this morning, right? My 5 o'clock.
I was gonna say, but I didn't want to bring it up. But yeah.
This is like 4K, I think.
Yeah.
So like, everybody can see, right? So like, you want to. If people are worried about their appearance or their office, or they don't have the ability to have a better setup, then yeah, I think it could be really intimidating for them. And it that could say, well, if I need to do video, I'm not going to do a podcast, because people are already saying like, oh, if it's complicated, I don't really want to do it anyway. So I think the barrier for entry gets a lot higher that way.
Which is I can't remember which presidential debate it was, but there was the one where it was like the advent of the television versus Nixon and JFK versus radio, right? And people who watched it on TV versus radio thought that different candidates won, right?
People who listened on only the radio thought Nixon sounded more confident and sounded better. People who watched it on TV thought JFK won because he looked better and was less sweaty. I think that was like, I mean, that's like the big thing.
That's true.
And he also refused to wear makeup, where JFK, had the, whatever it's called, the pancake makeup or whatever. And that made him look better on TV.
All right, there it is. The end of round 1. So this is a great opportunity. Let's move into round 2, which is all about production, because Jay, you mentioned something about how you made a slip up during the recording, and you can, correct that in post, whether it's on screen or maybe, with a typical audio podcast, you could go in and re-record lines and all that stuff too. But like from a production standpoint, actually, Joe, I want to go to you with this first, which is, I want to know why you believe that having an audio only podcast just generally is a lighter lift. Whether that's you're trying to tackle it yourself or you're outsourcing to an editor. What is your thought process on just production in general?
Yeah, I think, I was going to mention something about where it comes with creativity on like CGI being a crutch, right? And I think when you strip away to just audio, CGI being a crutch in new movies today versus like actually relying on good content, right? And I think that you have a similar effect with audio, right? You have less to work with, so you need to be maybe a little bit more creative with keeping the audience engaged. And that goes right into production, right? Because like we said, being audio only, you only need to worry about the audio. When you're working with video, you need good lighting, you need a good camera, you need to always be on, right? If Jay and I start to get bored as you're talking and we start to drift, like that's going to look bad for us, right? Just like presidential debates when George H.W. Bush checked his watch, that like ruined the debate for him, right? And so I think it's with no video, it could be less draining. But then with editing, you don't need to worry about syncing audio and video either. You don't need to creatively cut, and you can do those audio pickups, right? There's sometimes they're called drop-ins, sometimes they're called audio pickups. But I can with the video, like you got to have the right exact pose, or you need to be wearing the right shirt,
wearing
right?
the same clothes, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like, and so with audio, you don't have to worry about any of that. It's a lot easier to do those pickups later. And so the truth is that creating a podcast is a grind either way, and you want to be consistent above all else. And unless there's a compelling reason to add video, you don't want it to hinder your ability to stay consistent.
Interesting, man. You are like right at 2 minutes every time. I haven't had to use the buzzer on you. Very impressive. Real quickly, just as an anecdote, as I was behind the scenes, as I was prepping for this podcast, I'm using Riverside, and I was doing some test recordings, right, as any good aspiring podcaster should do. And I was having a heck of a time trying to figure out how to sync the audio and the video, because I want to have a super high resolution. I'm trying to do this in 4K, and so I'm just honestly, I couldn't figure it out, and so I was like, I'll just fix it in post. So that was the conclusion. But you're right. There's these non-trivial production factors when you're trying to do two different content formats. Jay, I want to bring you in here. Thoughts on the production process? I know you hired an editor. I want to hear a little bit more about that, and just kind of what is the complexity? How has the complexity changed now, given that you previously did an audio show for the last several years?
Definitely more complex, definitely more expensive, because I did hire an editor. The other side of that, though, because I'm not a video editor and I didn't have that skill set, I had to hire somebody, which actually removed me from the production process. So I personally spend less time on the production week to week than I used to. And I think that's really compelling. Definitely more complex in general, and that does run the risk of, okay, if I lost my video editor or if he had life happen, what happens to the show? That puts me in a pretty difficult situation. It's difficult to keep the trains running on time. But, with anything, you weigh the pros and cons against the lens that is your context, and you make a choice. And I decided to move forward in this way.
What would you do if, pull that thread? Like, what would you do if your editor said, hey, can't work with you anymore, or hey, I'm super sick for a month, or like, how would that, what would you do? Just out of curiosity.
I would have to hire a new editor. Or I would rethink, do I want to continue to do a video show? And if so, in this format. We have basically a shared language for how we're creating this thing now. It's no longer just a me thing, it's an us thing. If I brought somebody in, sure, I would want them to look at the past episodes and try to model that a little bit, but I would also want it to be an us thing with that person. So we would probably change the format of the show a little bit, which took some time for us to work out how to do, not even just the stylistic choices, but the logistic and operational decisions for how we manage together. So certainly a more complicated lift. But as I said a little bit earlier, anytime that there are challenges like this, I've started reframing them as opportunities, because that is more challenging. Fewer people will do that. There will be fewer high quality video podcasts starting every year than there will be audio podcasts. And I think that is a competitive advantage in the near term and the long term.
Joe, what do you think about Jay's point there about that it's a competitive advantage because there's less high quality video shows coming out each year?
I mean, I think that's an absolutely true point, right? Because I tried doing video maybe this will bias me, but I tried experiments with video podcasting, and I didn't really do much in the way of changing the content, right? So I'd record into my app and I would make some edits here and there. I'm familiar with video editing, and with Descript, it was pretty easy to kind of edit both at the same time. But like I said, unless you're doing something special for YouTube, right, that makes the video more compelling, then it's probably not going to gain traction, at least right now, right? Again, YouTube's plans for podcasting probably go beyond what is there today. So I think that like adding that extra level of complexity, adding that extra cost is great for maybe creators like you and me, who are the three of us who make money off of our content, right? But I try to convince some of my students to hire an audio editor because they said that's the most time consuming thing. And, they're worried about the cost of that as well.
So I want to double click on this because for purely selfish reasons, Jay, like, how do you, I think I saw you in a tweet mention your workflow to, I think it was Brian Harris, and you, sounds like after the video edit is done, you actually have a separate audio engineer that masters the final audio edit. Is that right? Is that something you need to do, or is that something that you could try to find someone to do both?
I would be wary of trying to find someone who could do both because they're very different skill sets, and I want top of the line quality on both sides of things. So the audio engineer's involvement, his name is Nathan, he's incredible. I've been working with him for more than 4 years now. It's a much lighter lift on his end because at this point, the first step in the process is actually doing essentially a full edit of the video episode before we export the audio tracks for the engineer to mix without removing any space that we can just reattach. So yeah, that's involved at the end. And a lot of that, sure, he has some presets to make my voice sound even silkier and better. But he also
sounds pretty silky already. I don't know.
That's the microphone. But it also does a lot for making the volume consistent because we do pull in a lot of B-roll. And that might be clips from the guest's YouTube channel and things. So it's really about making sure that we have a consistent listening volume as much as anything else.
Okay, real quickly before we move on to round 3, like short form. I mean, like, it's hard to deny there's lots of big podcasts that one of the primary reasons they've decided to go into video was so that they could try to grow on TikTok or Instagram Reels. Jay, I know you've dabbled with that. Joe, I'm not sure if you have, but either of you, any thoughts on how short form plays into that, into this whole conversation?
I think there's opportunity there. The conclusion that we've circled around on is, sure, in a perfect world, we are clipping out a ton of clips from the video that we can put on short form video. There are some creators who really play a quantity game on this. I know Danny Miranda will clip 20 to 30 clips from each video episode he does because his perspective is he doesn't know which one of them will do well. He's just going to post them all. We, one, have opportunity cost because I have one video editor. He's doing the short form as well. So we either hire a short form person or he takes his time doing that instead of getting ahead on the workflow. The other thing that we've come around to believe, because we did a little testing on this, clipping out a 60-second bit from a video podcast works. It's okay. But these short form platforms really want something that was created natively for that platform. So we think that there's more opportunity to expand our video strategy for short form, making dedicated short form videos. And there's kind of a spectrum there. There's an in-between. We did one clip from my interview with Derek Sivers that we put on all these different platforms, but we went out of our way to put a lot more on-screen effects and B-roll to make it feel more native. And that clip was posted months ago, and it gets engagement every single day. Somehow the algorithm knows like this is doing pretty well, and it grows in views every single day.
This is on later. YouTube, TikTok Shorts. Which one?
I mean, predominantly, Reels? I see it on Instagram Reels because I get notifications when somebody likes that reel. But I've also noticed it in the analytics on YouTube as well. Haven't seen it on TikTok. I don't know that TikTok cycles back that far as well, but YouTube and Reels has been pretty effective.
Interesting. Joe, I want to bring you in and tell us why using short form content is stupid in a second. But first, a word from our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by ConvertKit and its 30-day Grow Your Audience Challenge. At ConvertKit, their mission is to help creators like you earn a living online. And one of the many tools that can help you get started is a landing page. They're a fast, simple, and beautiful way to start building your email list. Throughout the 30 days, ConvertKit will give you the tools you need to create a new landing page and grow your audience, access to a community to help keep you accountable, and on-demand workshops to teach you list building tips to answer all your questions. I personally use ConvertKit for my newsletter and grew it from 0 to over 10,000 subscribers in a little over 2 years. I can vouch for how easy it is to use, how awesome their support and customer service are, and they're just amazing advocates of creators. So check out the Grow Your Audience Challenge at convertk.it/GYA or click the link below in the episode description. That's convertk.it/GYA. All right, Joe. Tell us why using TikTok, Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts, not really that effective for a podcaster.
Well, I'll tell it to you from the audio only standpoint, right? And the audio only standpoint is that audiograms are just not compelling video, right? Like watching text fly across the screen or a waveform, like people don't care about that. That's not compelling video. What is compelling video, and this is going to add more to your workflow, is what I would do for a little bit is I would record a video right after the interview, vertical, short form, and say, hey, I just got finished interviewing Justin Moore. We talked about this. He told us about our rope method. If you want to check that out, the episode's live right now. Click the link, whatever, like whatever call to action, right? And that's me kind of summarizing, going through the top 3 takeaways, which I write again right after the episode. And again, that's extra work. I don't have a strong following on TikTok, so I didn't see a good return on that. What I did see was on YouTube Shorts when I released like little tips that I got from the show. I didn't even have to use the guest's audio, right? I just said, this is a tip. I learned it from here. Here's the link to the episode if you're interested. And that, again, was a lot easier for me to produce. I would record it with my camera app and then upload the video separately on each platform, right? Because they like it coming from them. And that worked for me for a while.
Interesting. Almost like a tweet thread. All the thread boys out here being like, I read 17 books and here's the biggest 10 takeaways, right? And that is the end of round 2. Let's get into round 3 because I think every creator watching and or listening, what they actually care about is monetization, right? Come on, let's get some cha-chings over here, right? So Jay, be real with us. How much money are you making now that you have a video in your podcast? And I want some dollars and cents, preferably screenshots of your bank statements, or also an acceptable answer is how much debt you're in now because you had to hire an editor.
Absolutely in more debt. Not even a joke. 100% in more debt.
No, but actually, like how are you? So let's talk about that. But also, how are you pitching sponsors now that you have a video component? 2 minutes.
To be honest, I haven't done a lot yet. We did work with Riverside out of the gate since we used Riverside to record that show. But one thing that I'm really bullish on about YouTube is, I pulled open my audio analytics for my episode with Justin Welsh. And since the week of posting that episode with Justin Welsh, basically in audio, you see a giant spike when it's released and then a slow trickle and then basically nothing ongoing unless somebody shares it in their newsletter. So it's basically that curve. On YouTube, it's been kind of a steady build, actually. Like the episode has way more life long term. So the difficult thing about pricing sponsorships, and I need to go back through Brand Deal Wizard to figure this out. I'm trying to figure out how I package this because I've never sold this before. And typically in audio, you sell it on a CPM basis and it gets cycled out. And that's not true in video. So in the immediate term, I've actually been using my ad breaks to promote my own stuff. The first ad break we've been using to promote my newsletter. The second ad break we've been using to promote the past 100 plus episodes of audio only content, so that as these videos get binged when new viewers find them, more and more people are being exposed to my newsletter and the audio show as well. And to me, I can't put a dollar value on that yet, but it's been a compelling use of that ad space. As I figure out what my sponsorship on YouTube, what that strategy looks like.
Super interesting. Joe, your turn. How do you approach monetization like with your audio only podcast? And like, also I'm curious, like, what do you say to brands who ask if you can do other stuff for them, like videos on social media or whatever?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, if people who've heard me talk before know I approach monetizing a podcast in 5 ways. It's the SMASH framework: sponsorship, membership, affiliates, selling, and helping. And the last 2 are a linchpin of podcasting because those are great ways to establish your trust and expertise. And it's generally more intimate than video. People are taking the time to listen in headphones, and they're going to trust you more. So you can sell your own product a little bit better. When it comes to sponsorship, though, I want to key in on something that Jay said there with CPM. I've never sold based on CPM. If I sold on CPM, it would probably be like $50 to $60. I sell based on a type of campaign that, Justin, you talk about in Brand Deal Wizard, brand awareness campaigns. Again, people trust me and they want to know more about the things that I trust. And so when people say, hey, your podcast sounds interesting, but I'm really more interested in video, video is good content to have. And so maybe this contradicts some of the things I was saying earlier, but I have a YouTube channel. And when I sell my sponsorship packages, I always include at least one video. And what I'll usually do is make the video and then make the ad campaign point back to the video and say like, hey, if you want to learn more about this sponsor, I did a video over on my YouTube channel where I highlight the top 3 features for creators. And now I'm leveraging both audiences and I'm pushing one audience to the other. And that's going to be really beneficial because it increases my overall reach for the brand.
Fascinating. Jay, with respect to this, do you believe the CPM pricing model in general, that advertisers, at least, I mean, you've been doing this for a long time, like, do you believe that people, brands and sponsors and prospective partners are more open-minded about other types of compensation structures, given now that there's all these other things that, you know, you or Joe, that you could do for them, like maybe in your community or in your newsletter or whatever?
Can I ask a follow-on to that?
Yes,
too?
please.
I'll just want to caveat that my ads are baked in too. They're not dynamically inserted. Jay, I don't know if yours are dynamically inserted, which you kind of have to sell based on CPM.
Yeah. It kind of depends on who your advertisers are, because there are advertisers who basically explicitly play the CPM game, and they're typically represented by agencies who are the ones really playing that game. And so on Creative Elements, the podcast, and even my newsletter, and a lot of the sponsors that the ConvertKit Sponsor Network are pulling in, most of those are through channels and people who are accustomed to and mostly only interested in doing the CPM game. Could I play another game? Sure. But I've actually set up my very lean business in such a way where I am outsourcing the sale of my ad inventory. And so I'm going to play whatever game those people want to play.
Right. Right. So it's an opportunity cost, like you said, right? It's like, if you wanted to bring someone on your team to, you know, handle it, whether it's a VA, you train them in your outreach or sales methodology and you do that, but it's a decision you made, right? I think that's an important point, right?
Yeah. And most of the time when I have explored more of a bespoke campaign, they're interesting. They might have a higher dollar amount in the immediate term, but they typically also come with more planning. Sometimes like entirely new pieces of content is desired. So I prefer right now to go with what has a lower opportunity cost in terms of my time, and work with those established channels who want to play the CPM game.
And that, my friends, is the end of round 3. Jay, Joe, it's time to make your final appeal. Okay. On the other end of your camera, on the other end of your microphone, is a creator who is relying on you to make this tough decision. So convince them why video is either awesome or terrible for their podcast. Joe, you're up. 1 minute.
Look, creating content is a tough gig. There's a lot to think about, from topics to actually creating the content to the editing and promoting. There's a lot to think about. The beauty of podcasting is that with an audio-only medium, you can create compelling content faster and more affordably. Plus, your reach could be better. People like to listen to podcasts when they're doing other things. Driving, cleaning, mowing the lawn, or cooking. I would listen while mowing the lawn. I have noise-canceling headphones. It's more convenient for them, and so they can listen at their convenience. You take that away when you introduce a video component. And if you want to make videos, by all means, make a video. But if you want to make a podcast, all you really need is a mic and your voice.
Wow. 2 seconds to go. Jay, you're up. 1 minute.
I want to tell you about a guy named Jeremy Mary who has a channel called Backstage Careers. It's a podcast, but it's also a YouTube channel. On that show, he interviews people who are working behind the front-facing creative talent. He had a video. It was an interview, a long-form interview with Caleb Ralston. You may not recognize his name, but he was behind a lot of Gary V's social growth on TikTok in particular, and also lately he's been working with the Hermosis on their social strategies. That long-form 90-minute interview from Jeremy is currently at 174,000 views on YouTube. That's far and above all of the other videos on his channel, and that can happen with any video that you upload to YouTube. That does not happen in podcasting. And that's the type of thing that I'm trying to tap into, because I believe the quality of all of my episodes is really high. I believe they're aligned in a way that if you find one, you're going to look at more of them on the channel. And I want to have one thing hit that introduces people to the rest of my world. And I think that the investment in YouTube is an investment in that opportunity.
Wow. There you have it. Jay, hit us with the call to action. Where can people learn more about Creator Science and follow you on social media?
Go to creatorscience.com. I'd actually love for you to check out Creative Elements, the podcast. Since you're a podcast listener, you can find that on YouTube by searching Creative Elements or going to @CreativeElementsFM. And anywhere you hang out on social, just search my name. You'll find me there.
I want to quickly tell everyone why I love following you, Jay, because you are one of the most thoughtful people I know. You give super objective feedback. You're a super talented writer, and I'm really proud to call you a friend. So thanks for being here, man.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate that. And likewise.
Yeah. Joe, hit us with your CTA.
All right. If you want to learn more about me, you can head over to podcastliftoff.com/debate. And there you'll find a link to my social accounts. You'll find a link to my podcast. And because I've been talking about starting a podcast so much, you'll actually get a little free webinar I put together for y'all. So that's podcastliftoff.com/debate.
Here's a quick little amazing behind the scenes. Joe actually literally created a customized landing page for y'all for this podcast. So I don't know. That's pretty impressive. And just Joe, why I love following you is that you are super generous with your time. Your automation skills are off the charts. It's actually kind of terrifying. And little known fact, the reason why my audio sounds so crispy right now and I have these idiotic sound effects is because Joe sold me his old Rodecaster Pro. So thank you, Joe. I appreciate both of you. And you, dear creator, watching and or listening. This podcast is brand new and I'm desperate for some feedback. Did you hate it? Did you love it? Who won this creator debate? Please let us know on social media by tagging @CreatorDebates. Tag Joe, tag Jay, and please rate it in your favorite podcast player. That's the thing, right? That's the thing, guys. You guys are podcasters, right?
Yeah.
And finally, shameless plug. If you want to get paid sponsorship opportunities, make sure to sign up for my free weekly newsletter at creatorwizard.com/join. All right, that's a wrap. Until next time.
Bye.